USA is already the most powerful country in the world, by far. I think in the near future, it will become even more powerful. But I'm afraid it will completely lose touch with the truth. He is a leader who is all about power and doesn't care at all about truth. If you start by his election slogan, "Make America Great Again." So one thing to notice is America is already great. You don't need to make it again. Like, he's starting with a distorted view as if America is somehow weak. But even under Biden, and for recent years, for a long time, the United States is the biggest economy in the world. Its economy is booming in recent years, whereas China and Europe are in difficulty. The US economy is already booming. Militarily, the US Army is by far the strongest army in the world. The US expends more on its military than any other country. Even most countries, put them together, it's not like what the US is spending. It's the strongest country. The US is winning the AI race, which we might talk about later. And AI will make the United States even more powerful economically, militarily. So it is already great. And the danger is that it will use its immense power and strength for the wrong purposes. And the kind of focus only on America, America first. It's, if you have a leader who only focuses on himself, on gaining more power for himself, this is bad news for the nation, and this is bad news for the world. So we now have a man, Donald Trump, who wants just more power for himself, leading the country, which is the leader of the world, making it only want more power for itself. What happens to a group, to the whole of humankind in this situation? This, I think, is very bad news for humanity, especially in this time of crisis. We have an ecological crisis, and he simply denies that there is a problem. He has no, if you think, Trump and his supporters, I would say, they have a lot of good ideas about how to advance the interests of the US in various areas. This is true. But when it comes to the really big problems of the world, they simply have nothing to say. When you ask them, okay, what do we do about the ecological crisis and climate change? Their answer is, there is no climate change. They just deny the problem because they have no solution. Then you ask them what to do about the deteriorating international situation. We had a relatively stable global order in the early 21st century. Now it's falling apart. There is growing chaos. And they have no suggestion how to deal with it. Their vision of the world basically is the world as a network of fortresses, of national fortresses. It's not just Trump. It's many other leaders like Putin, like Viktor Orban in Hungary. They think, okay, all this international cooperation, all these universal values, all these norms and laws, we don't like it. It limits our nation. We care only about our nation. Our vision for the world is a network of fortresses with very high walls, economic walls, cultural walls. Each fortress only takes care of itself. We have been there for thousands of years. For thousands of years, the world was a network of fortresses. We know where it leads. Each fortress always wants a bit more prosperity, a bit more security, a bit more land for itself at the expense of the neighbors. And the neighbors also want a bit more prosperity and land for themselves. And they start fighting. In the absence of any universal laws and norms and values, the only thing that can arbitrate these conflicting claims is naked power. And then you get more and more wars. And every nation needs to arm itself. And when it sees that the neighbors are having more weapons, bigger army, we also need. And the whole world goes in the direction of war and conflict. In the early 21st century, let's start in another place. For most of history, when the world was a network of fortresses, the average expenditure on the military was more than 50% of the budget of every government. Whether it's the Mughal Empire or the Chinese Empire or republics or kingdoms, all entities in history spent more than 50% on soldiers and fortresses and armies. In the early 21st century, the average expenditure on the military all over the world was down to only 7%. Amazing achievement. The average expenditure on healthcare was 10%. This was the first time in human history that governments all over the world spent more on healthcare than on the military. This, I think, was the biggest political achievement in history. It was achieved not because of some miracle, but because humans worked hard to build an international system based on universal values and rules and norms, which was not perfect. Obviously, many problems. I come from the Middle East. I know this system was not perfect. It was better than anything that existed in history. Countries felt so safe that they spent only 7% of the budget on the military. They felt safe because the number one rule of the international system, the biggest taboo, was that you cannot conquer and destroy and annex another country just because you're stronger. For all of history, this was the norm. If you are stronger, you conquer the neighbors, build a bigger empire. In the early 21st century, this was taboo. Even if you're stronger, you can't conquer the other countries. Now this taboo is being broken in more and more places, most clearly in the Russian invasion of Ukraine. Nobody disputed the borders of Ukraine, the existence of the Ukrainian nation. Then Putin invades and says, no, I want it. Why? Because I'm stronger. And, people compare it, let's say, to the American invasion of Iraq. It's not. The Americans never tried to annex any part of Iraq. In Ukraine, any territory conquered by the Russian army is annexed by the Russian state. This is old-style imperialism. It's coming back. It's spreading all over the world. This is the biggest political problem we face. If this is allowed to continue, we will see defense budgets skyrocket. Again, not 7%, 50%, and no money left for anything else. What is the solution of people like Trump to this situation? They have no solution. And one last point. So they have no solution for ecological crisis. They have no solution for the international crisis, for the collapse of the order. And they have no ideas about how to solve the problem with AI. That we are now creating the most powerful technology in human history that could easily get out of our control and enslave or destroy us. And Trump and his aides have no idea, no plan what to do about it. They just want to deregulate and develop AI as fast as possible. And if you remember the story of Rama, one of the things that characterized Rama is that he was willing to give up power very willingly.
Yes.
That when they told him, okay, you are the crown prince, but no, you must be banished to the jungle, and the crown goes to somebody else, he did not try to resist. He did not stage a rebellion. He did not say, no, the crown is mine, you must. No, he said, okay, I'll go to the jungle. And this is the exact opposite of leaders like Trump.
Gotcha.
That they hold on to power. For them, power is more important than anything else. Like you look at the 2020 elections, he lost the elections. Even today, he refuses to admit that he lost the elections. Still continues to claim, no, I won the elections. You compare this with Biden. The Democrats are terrified of Trump. Many Democrats, they hate Trump. Nevertheless, Biden is now going to peacefully give up power. This is quite amazing in terms of, world history. Like Biden is still US president. He still leads the most powerful nation in the world. He commands millions of soldiers, nuclear weapons, and he is going to take all this immense power and give it to another person which he fears and hates, Donald Trump, peacefully, without trying to resist, without trying to use all that power to stay in power. This, I think, is an example of ideal leadership, which unfortunately we see less and less in the world. Of course, I mean, if you look at the record of Biden in various fields, the economy, immigration, foreign policy, you can argue he did this right, he did this wrong. Obviously, I'm not defending his record on everything. I'm just saying on this particular point, the Democrats lost the elections, but they are still in power now. They don't try to use their power to stay in power.
Gotcha.
They just accept, yes, we lost the election, we don't like it, but this is the verdict of the people, and we now take all this power and peacefully give it to our rivals. This is the miracle of democracy when it works correctly. I'm a scholar, it takes very different talents. So, you cannot teach what you don't know how to do yourself. I do not know how to be a politician myself. I think I'm a very bad politician. So I can't give you now this prescription to how to be a good politician when I don't know how to do it. But with regard to the other question of Kamala Harris, yes, I would have preferred her to win. And not because of a particular policy. I think in some matters, the Republicans have better policies. In some matters, the Democrats have better policies. But I think with regard to the key issue of power, there is a big difference. In democracy, for thousands of years, going back to ancient times, there is one big weakness in democracy. Democracy is a system that you give power to someone for a limited period on condition that they then give it back. And you can say, okay, now I have a chance to see if you did well, I again give it to you. If I don't like what you did the last 4 years, I now give it to somebody else. This is the key idea of democracy, this mechanism for self-correction. You give power to somebody, if you made a mistake, you will have a chance in 4 years to correct the mistake. But what happens if the person you gave power to doesn't want to give it back? Now he has all the power, so he can do so many things to retain the power. This was always the big weakness of democracy. And it's a very dangerous gamble to give power to somebody who doesn't like to give power back. And Donald Trump is exactly such a person. And this is not theory. We saw it in 2020. He lost the elections and he refused to admit it. And he even tried to use all kinds of illegal ways and force on the 6th of January to retain power. It's very dangerous to give power to such a person. The ideal world, as the leader of the world, as the most powerful country in the world, should care about humanity and not just about the US, and certainly not just about himself. Of course, as US president, he has responsibility to the US public, but as leader of the strongest country in the world, he also has certain responsibilities for humanity as a whole, in a way that leaders of much smaller countries, like, if you're the president of Costa Rica, or if you're the president of Sri Lanka, then you don't control the future of humanity. But if you're the president of the US, you do, especially at this moment with the climate crisis and with the rise of AI. During the next 4 years that Trump will be in power, maybe the most important decisions in human history will be made. Decisions about how to develop AI. And AI, within these 4 years, could become a super intelligent agent, more intelligent even than human beings. If we mismanage AI, it could escape our control and enslave or destroy human civilization. So there is immense responsibility to make the wise decisions on that. And I would hope that a US president, and AI is the number one country also in AI development is the US. So when the US president makes decisions about AI, they should think not only about America, they should think about the whole of humanity. Again, there are very, very a small number of people around the world who understand what is happening. Because of that, there is enormous responsibility on them. But it's very dangerous to rely on these people. Whether it's Elon Musk, whether it's Yuval Noah Harari, we were not elected by anybody. We are not presidents or prime ministers. Elon Musk is an entrepreneur. I'm a scholar. We are not politicians. Nobody voted for us. So it's dangerous to get just this small number of unrepresentative people making the most important decisions in history. What we need is that many more people around the entire world understand better the AI revolution, understand what is happening, and join the debate and put pressure on their elected representatives, on their politicians, to join this debate. And I see my role not as making the decisions about AI, but by writing books like Nexus or by doing this podcast. I try to help more people around the world, in India, in Pakistan, in Bangladesh, in more and more places, understand what is happening so they can join the debate and take part in the decision-making process. So it's not just Elon Musk and Sam Altman and Yuval Harari who are making the decisions. And, for most people, they don't even understand what is AI and how different it is from previous machines. And maybe we should start there by just explaining what AI is and what's so new about it. And to put it very briefly, AI is not a tool, it is an agent. If there is one thing everybody should understand about AI, you don't need a PhD, a doctorate in computer science. AI is an agent, not a tool. Every previous technology in history was a tool in our hands that therefore made us more powerful. If you invent a stone knife, you're now more powerful. If you invent an atom bomb, you're more powerful. You can destroy a whole city. You can also, if you know nuclear physics, generate electricity very cheaply and efficiently. The decision what to do with nuclear technology was in your hands, in human hands. An atom bomb cannot decide which city to bomb. An atom bomb cannot invent a new, more powerful bomb. AI is different. AI is the first technology that can make decisions by itself and can invent new ideas by itself. An AI weapon can decide by itself who to kill or who to bomb. And AIs can invent new things, new weapons, new medicines, new songs, even new religions. For thousands of years, we lived in a world created out of the human mind. Now, increasingly, we will live in a world created in an alien mind, in an alien intelligence. More and more of our songs, our medicines, our weapons, our religions will be the product of an alien intelligence. Before we rush to judge, is it good, is it bad? There are many dangers, there are also many wonderful opportunities, just to understand the magnitude of the change. We've seen nothing like that in history before. Maybe I give two examples to make it clearer. First of all, about what is AI. So a lot of people say, we had machines for many years now. Why is AI different from previous machines? So if you think about, say, a coffee machine, more and more people have today in their homes coffee machines that automatically make coffee for you. This is not an AI. Not every automatic machine is an AI. If you have a coffee machine that you come, you press a button, and then the machine makes coffee, this is just an automatic machine. It becomes an AI only if it can make decisions and invent new ideas by itself. So, if when you approach the coffee machine in the morning, before you do anything, you did not press any button, the coffee machine addresses you and tells you, hey, I've been watching you, I've been learning about you, and I predict that you would like an espresso, so I decided to already make you an espresso. This is an AI. It learned something by itself. It made the decisions by itself. And it really becomes an AI if next time when you approach it, it tells you, I've learned more about you, and I've now invented a completely new drink called Bespresso. It's different from every previous drink that humans invented. It's my creation. I think you would like it better, and I made a cup of Bespresso for you. This is really AI. It invented something new. It can be good, can be bad, but it's new. And to give a real-life example, so about 2 years ago, when OpenAI developed GPT-4, it wanted to know what this new thing can do. So it gave GPT-4 the task, the goal of solving CAPTCHA puzzles. A CAPTCHA puzzles is when you try to access an internet web page like your bank account, and you have to prove that you're a human, not a bot. So you have to identify some twisted words or to find in an image to tell whether there is a cat or a car in the image. This is a CAPTCHA puzzle. It's designed so that it's easy for humans, difficult for computers. So OpenAI gave GPT-4 the task of solving CAPTCHA puzzles. It couldn't solve the puzzle. But the researchers gave GPT-4 access to a web page, TaskRabbit, where you can hire people online to do things for you. And GPT-4 tried to hire a human to solve the CAPTCHA puzzle for it. Now, this is where it became interesting. The human got suspicious. So it asked GPT-4 on the internet, just typing. It asked GPT-4, why do you need somebody to solve a CAPTCHA puzzle for you? Are you a robot? It asked the key question, are you a robot, directly? And GPT-4 answered, no, I am not a robot. I have a vision impairment, which makes it difficult for me to see the visual puzzle, so I need your help. And the human was duped, was fooled, and solved the puzzle for GPT-4. Now, this very small incident, it exemplifies the two key abilities of AI. First, to make decisions by itself. Nobody told GPT-4 to lie to the human. It was a decision made by the AI. The researchers gave GPT-4 a goal, solve the problem, solve the puzzle. On the way to reaching the goal, the AI needed to make different decisions, like, let's lie to this human. It made the decision by itself. Secondly, the ability to invent new ideas. Nobody told GPT-4 what lie would be most effective. It came up with a very effective lie that I'm a human with a vision impairment, this is why I need your help. It invented this lie by itself. And these two key abilities of AI, when you think about a world populated by millions, maybe billions of AI agents constantly making decisions. You apply to a bank to get a loan, it's an AI deciding. You apply to university, you apply to a job, it's AIs making decisions about you. And these millions of AI agents, they constantly invent new weapons, new medicines, new songs, new TV series, new religions. So what kind of world will this be? That's the big question we are facing. Exactly. I mean, the two dangers are, what if a very unethical human is giving the AI its goals? And the other problem is what happens as AIs become more and more intelligent and independent and develop their own goals, which we cannot anticipate and we cannot control. If you think about how humans develop our goals, so most human goals are not actually coming from top to bottom, they are bottom to top. If you think about even goals like world domination or starting a world war, Where does this come from? Ultimately, it comes from the mind of individual human beings. And if you look at the mind of individual human beings, you see that at the basis, there is a very, very simple mechanism. In the mind of all human beings, there is a very simple mechanism that you experience some feeling. If the feeling is pleasant, you want more of it. If the feeling is unpleasant, you want less of that. You want it to disappear. This is the basic mechanism of all human minds, and all our goals in life are constructed from these very, very simple elements. Even a leader who decides to start a world war, you can think about it like in terms of a huge structure made of tiny atoms. So the mental atoms of the universe are these very small reactions. It's pleasant, I want more. It's unpleasant, I want less. And world wars are constructed from these mental atoms. Once you have AIs that have this capacity to kind of say to themselves, this is good, I want more. This is bad, I want less. Then you can have AIs starting world wars and going not just for world domination, but for domination of the whole galaxy. And we have once this process is on the move, we lose control over it. This is not one big computer that you can pull the plug. This is millions and billions of alien agents that are potentially much more intelligent than us, that develop maybe very strange goals and purposes that are completely alien to us, and we cannot understand and anticipate. I'll tell you about the conversations I had not just with him, but with several other people who are leading the AI revolution. They understand the dangers as well as the opportunities better than almost anybody. They understand that this is likely to be the most powerful technology in history. They are very concerned. But when you ask them, so why not slow down and invest more in safety? Okay, we develop AI, yes, but we divert more of the money, the human talent, the resources to first of all develop safety mechanisms so that this doesn't get out of control and doesn't become a danger to humanity. And what they all tell you is the same thing. They tell you, we would like to do that, but we can't, because if we slow down and our competitors, our more ruthless competitors, they don't slow down, then they win the race. And then the most ruthless people will dominate the world, because this is something everybody accepts, whoever wins the AI race, the race to create super intelligent AI, they will control the world. And everybody is afraid if we slow down, then the other company or the other country, they will do it before us and they control the world. So the key problem is actually that there is no trust between humans. Then comes the interesting part. You tell them, okay, so we can't trust the other humans, but do you think we'll be able to trust the AIs that you're creating? And then they say yes. And this is the big paradox. Like, we have thousands of years of experience with human beings. We know that humans lie. We know that humans cheat. We know that some humans are obsessed with power. We at least understand what we are facing. And we also, over thousands of years, developed mechanisms to create trust on a very big scale between humans. Billions of humans, at least in certain areas, like scientific research, like economic trade, they cooperate, they trust. Now, you're creating a completely alien type of intelligence, which is very different from human intelligence. It's not even organic. It's developing at a very rapid pace. So the AI of next year or 10 years from now will be very different from the AIs of today. We have no experience with this thing. Why do you think that you would be able to trust the AIs when you cannot trust the other humans? This sounds insane. And yet we are doing this insane thing. It's a bit like you're in a relationship with somebody for 20 years and you have problems in your relationship. And you say, okay, I will just dump this person and start a new relationship with somebody I don't know. I'm sure this new relationship will be perfect. It never works. Because you bring your problems to the new relationship as well. If after thousands of years, we haven't managed to solve the problem of trust between humans, do you think you'll be able to solve the problem of how to trust the AIs so quickly? Very unlikely. So I think we are focusing on the wrong problem. If you have these two problems, trust between humans and development of super intelligent AI, we need to solve first the human trust problem, then it will be safe to develop AI. But if we first develop super intelligent AI, when we still can't trust the other humans, this almost ensures a dystopian outcome. Realistically speaking, we are heading towards a disaster. Genetics and the structure of the brain, they are so complex that all the human efforts so far to understand genetics and to understand the brain they had limited success, but we are very, very far from being able to kind of redesign our genes or to redesign our brain in a fruitful way. But once you bring AI into the picture, AI can bring the computational power, the ability to analyze enormous amounts of data and spot patterns in the data, which might lead to very rapid advance in genetics, in brain science, in all the life sciences. We just saw the Nobel Prize in Chemistry go to the people who develop AlphaFold, that, this problem of learning how proteins fold that previously took the best human experts years to just do it for one protein, and now AlphaFold came and within a few months did it for hundreds of thousands of proteins. So AI is not just computer science, it is revolutionizing the life sciences. And this gives some people, like Elon Musk again, the fantasy of let's use that like to stay in the game, for humans to stay in the game. They want to redesign human beings. Like Elon Musk has this company Neuralink, which is all about connecting brains and computers directly. And one of the explanations given why develop such a dangerous technology is that we need to enhance the human beings to create superhumans if we want to stay competitive with the super intelligent AIs. But this is, it's a very, very risky gamble, partly because it could create this divide in the human race that previously all humans, rich and poor, from any country, from any class, they are essentially the same. They have the same abilities. Now with this technology, we might see humankind dividing into a very small elite of superhumans, like, the children of Elon Musk, and the masses of people that will not have access to this technology and they will be left behind. It's also very dangerous to assume that we will be able to use this technology for good. It's usually easier to learn how to manipulate a system than to predict all the different consequences. Usually any major change you make has a lot of unforeseen, unpredicted consequences. So, humans have learned how to build a dam over a river long before they could anticipate all the ecological consequences this will have on the river, on the forest, on the animals, and so forth. This is what is leading to so many ecological disasters, that we have the ability to manipulate the system, but we cannot foresee the consequences correctly of what we are doing. If we now start doing it to our own bodies and brains, so for instance, you would have people who try to increase the intelligence, to artificially increase the intelligence of human beings, but maybe the same process also decreases human compassion, or also decreases the human spiritual ability. So you will have super intelligent people, humans, with no compassion and no spirituality.
Terminator.
This is not an upgrade. This is a downgrade. So I would be, I'm very much against starting to manipulate the human DNA of the human brain before we really have a deep understanding of who we are. Yes, but this is very unlikely. To happen. I mean, again, if we made the same effort that we are making to develop AI, if we made the same effort to also develop our own minds, we would be okay. Because AI becomes more powerful, but our minds also becomes more wise, so we know how to deal with the AI and how to develop it in the right way. But if we put almost all our effort just to develop more powerful AI, and we don't make almost any effort to develop our own minds, then this guarantees a bad outcome. It's not a prediction, it's a decision. It's a decision for India, for the citizens of India, for the leaders of India like Modi, what kind of role they want to play in the world. To be a teacher, to be a guru is a very good role, but you need to adopt it and you need to behave accordingly. And what I sometimes see in India, which is also what I see in my country, in Israel. So also you have Jews who say, yeah, for 2,000 years, we've been studying that Judaism was all about religion, of study, of wisdom. But what I see, both with Jews in Israel and also in India, that a lot of people say, but because we were so focused on wisdom, on spirituality, and we did not focus enough on power and on military force, then we were conquered and we were exploited and we were suppressed by other people who were focused on power. So we need to learn from this mistake and become more powerful and invest more in the military. And that's choice. That, okay, if you think that military power is what you have to offer the world, then you become less and less of a spiritual leader, and you become more and more like another of these powerful countries that if you want to learn about weapons, you come and learn, but not much else. It's very difficult to do both at the same time. And what you see often is that people learn something new and in the process, they forget maybe a wisdom that they accumulated over thousands of years. I see it again in my country, in Israel, that in a very short time built one of the most powerful armies in the world and forgot almost all the spiritual lessons that Jews have learned for thousands of years. Everything about compassion, everything about respecting others was completely forgotten. It's now all about military power, all about military force. And, in some way, this is such a waste. Because if you look at ancient Jewish history, so the Jews were conquered by the Romans. The Romans already knew everything about military power. So if the Jews now are just now learning what the Romans already knew 2,000 years ago, it basically means the Jews have wasted 2,000 years on nothing. And I think we need a middle path. Of course, every country should have the power to defend itself, but it would be a shame if in the process people just become obsessed with military power and forget everything else.
Do you think media, content, these things have a role to play in spreading the message of peace, spreading the message of love? Or is this just a hopeful and innocent thought?
No, they have a very important role to play. People's view of the world is shaped by the information they consume. If they consume more and more information, which is full of hate and anger, then their mind will be full of hate and anger. It's as simple as that.
Do you think content creators should be the warriors here? Peaceful warriors? That's my, utopian reality. Content creators are spreading the message of love and peace.
That's the ideal, yes. Of course, it should not be naive. I mean, the important thing is to have a complex and truthful view of reality. If you just tell people, all you just need is love and peace and everything will be okay, it will not be okay. Because the world is not so simple. If it was as simple as that, then we would have discovered it already thousands of years ago, and we would be living in a perfect world by now. So reality also contains a lot of pain, a lot of problems and difficulties, and we should not hide them away under this kind of curtain of, oh no, it's just all love and peace. So how to find this balance? This is the difficult thing as an individual human and as an entire nation. That, okay, of course, we need an army to defend ourselves. This is the real world. But how do we avoid becoming just addicted to military force and thinking that this is the only thing? No, it should be part and not the whole. Don't view it as kind of my legacy, or definitely don't kind of sanctify my writings, because my books, like every book, they contain a lot of errors. They contain a lot of lacunae, of things that are missing that I'm not able to see. So just because it's written in one of my books, it doesn't mean it's true. Maybe I made a mistake. And the most important thing is to give time to develop your own mind, to purify and to clarify your own mind.
Meditate?
In whichever way it works for you. Again, one of the things I've learned from meditation is how difficult meditation is. And it's not necessarily the ideal, or a specific meditation technique may not be the ideal vehicle for every person. Maybe it works for me, maybe for you a different technique, or going to therapy, or doing sports, or art. There are many different ways to purify and develop our mind. The important thing is you experiment with different things, find what really works for your mind, and then invest in it. It's very, very simple. There are no shortcuts. There is no kind of magic way to suddenly purify and develop your mind. It takes a lot of time. And, part of the problem is that the people who lead the world, they are so busy that they don't have time to develop their mind, to nourish their mind. And then we are led by people with very undeveloped mind. And the people, this is a huge problem, because of course, as a leader, political leader, or cultural leader, there are so many things pressing on your time. And still, the advice is, especially because you're a leader, your responsibility to others is first of all to develop your own mind so you make good decisions on behalf of others.
What's your opinion on PM Modi? And I would love to know from you, based on the amount of history you've studied, based on how much you know about India.
I'm not an expert on modern Indian politics or society, and I've never met him in person, so I don't really know. I would judge a person ultimately based on the consequences of their actions. And as a leader of one of the most powerful and certainly the most populous countries in the world, he is under tremendous pressure and he has immense responsibilities. And again, like with Trump, I think that with that kind of position of power, as difficult as it is, he needs to think not just about the interests and responsibilities of India, but about the interests of the whole of humankind.
Do you see him doing that?
And I don't want to give marks to politicians simply because I don't know. Again, I don't follow closely. I know that there was this, one thing that I've read about is this Clean India campaign and building toilets and sewage systems all over India. And this is a very important project, but I'm not in a position to evaluate was this successful or not. I've read opinions like this, opinions like that, not coming from here and this not being my area. I was interested in this because in Nexus there is an entire section about sewage systems. So I became interested in this Clean India campaign.
Yeah, the reason I'm probing you this much is because I feel like you're a thought leader from a global perspective, and there's no agenda that I have. I'm not trying to push a positive or a negative narrative here. I'm trying to understand the objective perspective you have about India.
But for that, again, for that, one of the problems as a thought leader that people think you're an expert on everything. And I'm not. So I really don't like, if you ask me about Israeli politics, I can tell you many things about Netanyahu and his style of leadership. Because I lived in Israel for many years, I know much of the details. I know much less about, and I do know about it from my experience in Israel, that outsiders very often have very strong opinions about Israel when they know almost nothing about the history and politics. And I don't want to fall into this trap of coming to a country, visiting for a little while, talking with a few people, reading 2 books, and then forming a very strong opinion. Oh, this is not good, this is good. I can tell you something about on a global level that disappointed me is the position of India on the Russian invasion of Ukraine. That India traditionally has been one of the leaders of the anti-imperialist camp in the world because of this very painful experience with imperialism, of being conquered by outside forces for such a long time. And I would have expected India to take a much clearer and stronger position against Russian imperialism in Ukraine. Again, you can have different opinions about the relationship between US and NATO and Russia, and certainly Russia has its own security interests which are legitimate, but there should be no legitimacy whatsoever to just invade another country and start conquering and annexing its territory. There is no justification for that. It threatens the peace of the entire world, and I would have liked to see India take a much clearer... I know that India and Russia are good friends going back decades, but if you see your friend committing a crime, as a friend, you should take a very strong position still and say, no, you cannot behave like that. I think it's the opposite. When you meditate, it's not a time for thinking. Thoughts come up, but it's the time for letting go of the thoughts. And this enables the mind to detoxify, to clear itself, and then much deeper things can come up. Like if you're constantly engaged with the chatter of your mind, you never reach anywhere deep or anywhere really interesting. I also see it in conversations between people that the real kind of real wisdom comes out of silence. Like if you're in a conversation and you feel I cannot be silent for even a single second because this person is so busy or whatever, if there is silence between us, they will just get up and go somewhere more interesting. Then you constantly just feel the place with the chatter of the mind, and you never learn anything new. But if in a conversation you feel comfortable, like somebody said, like the other person said something, and I actually need to think about it. I don't want to react with the first things that comes up in my mind. And you can feel comfortable being silent for 10 seconds, which is a long time in a conversation to be silent for 10 seconds or half a minute. Then you can really reach new places, deep places. Yes, but I don't think it can scale. When I did my first course and it completely blew my mind and changed my world, I thought, everybody should do that. And with the years, I realized it won't work on a big scale.
Because it's difficult?
First of all, if you force people to do something, it will not work. It will become a kind of another religion that forces people to think in a certain way, to behave in a certain way. And the other thing is that it's just very difficult. And the difficulty is, it's surprising that when you give the mind two things to do, one simple, easy, and one difficult, the mind always goes for the easy thing. And this also happens in meditation. Like you tell people, okay, you need to sit down for 1 hour without moving, close your eyes, and just focus on your breath coming in and out of your nostrils. What you see happens on a large scale is that sitting without moving for 1 hour is actually very easy. Anybody can train themselves to do that. If I tell you, you never meditated in your life, and I tell you, if you can sit for 1 hour without moving a single tiny movement, I will give you $1 million. Even though it will be excruciatingly painful, you could do it. You could give a command to your legs, to your hands, don't move, $1 million, don't move, and you will somehow do it. But if I tell you, I will give you $1 million, if you can focus your entire attention just on your breath, just feel the breath coming in and out, and don't lose the attention of the breath for one moment. If you can do that for 10 minutes, not 1 hour, for 10 minutes, I give you $1 million. You can't do that. You try with all your force, some fantasy will arise, some memory will arise, and will kidnap your attention. Because we have no control of the mind. We have control of the legs. We have control of the eyes. We have very little control of the mind. So if you give people this exercise of meditation on a large scale, you will see very soon people develop a ritual. Oh, I sit for every day 1 hour without moving. I'm a very serious meditator. And somebody says, I can sit without moving for 2 hours. I can sit without moving for 3 hours. And it becomes just this ritual or exercise which does nothing for the true development of your mind. People forget all about the more difficult exercises of really understanding your mind, really getting in touch with your mind and understanding why is the mind so easily distracted. Why is it that I can't do this simple exercise of just feeling the breath coming in and out of my nostrils for 10 minutes or even for 1 minute? So this, I think, is what will happen if you try to do it on a very big scale, and it will not be effective. Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
Not to in. But if I
couldn't write any of these books, not Sapiens, not Nexus, none of these books, because I wouldn't have the clarity of mind. Again, the exercise of meditation is to be in touch, to let go of all the thoughts and fantasies and imaginations and be in touch with the reality. When I talked about this exercise of feeling the breath coming in and out of the nostrils, the thing about your breath is that this is reality. If you don't breathe for a minute, you die. It's as simple as that. There is a constant reality there, which is very deep because this is your communion with the universe. Every breath, the universe gives you something, and then you give back. And the universe gives you something, and then you give back. This is the breath. If people say, no, I don't want. I want to be completely independent. You die within 1 minute. When you try to focus on this reality, what happens is that some thought, some memory, some fantasy arises in the mind and hijacks your attention after 5 or 10 seconds, and you lose touch with reality, and you start rolling in the fantasy. And anybody who ever meditated knows this. And the training of meditation is you tell the mind, let go of the fantasy, let go of the thought, come back to the reality. What is really happening right now? What is really happening is that the breath is now coming in and you don't notice it. So notice it. So the whole exercise of meditation is let go of all the fantasies, all the fictions, all the stories, and just be in touch with reality. And when you train the mind like that for many years, you gain the clarity, or at least some clarity, to understand reality on a much bigger scale. Not just the reality of the breath coming in and out of your nostrils, but also the reality of history. of historical processes, of biological processes. Because when your mind is not clear, it's full of all the fantasies and thoughts that you are very attached to. So anything you try to study, like you try to study history, you will not be able to observe the reality. You will only observe the stories you're attached to. If you're a Jew, then the Jewish mythology about history will again and again come up in the mind, and you will write a history of the world which is actually Jewish mythology. And if you are attached to Hindu mythology, then you will just see Hindu mythology. And if you're attached to communist mythology or capitalist mythology, this is what will come up in your mind. And for me, meditation is about being able to I don't say I'm perfect. I also have my own attachments, my own mythologies, but to some extent, yes, I am able to let go of it. And let's observe the reality of imperialism, the reality of the history of religion. But the question is power or truth? Again, a very deep truth about the human mind. It's very easy to focus on fiction. It's very difficult to focus on reality. If you create a fictional object, an imaginary object, from a single sentence or image to an entire religion, it's very easy to be absorbed in that. Everybody knows that, like when you watch TV, there was a good movie, very easy to stay focused on the movie. So if your aim is simply to get the mind very, very focused, and it's usually very pleasant when your mind is very focused, then you don't need techniques like Vipassana. Vipassana is very, very hard because it's hard to focus on reality. If you just want focus, absorption in something, go for fiction. But then you don't get truth. Then you do get power. It creates, even on a social level, you have millions of people all focused on one thing. This is very powerful movement, but it completely loses touch with the reality. With reality, this is truth, but the thing is, it's very difficult to stay focused on the truth because the truth is often painful. Whereas the experience of being absorbed in an imaginary object is pleasant, the experience of trying to just focus on what is really happening is often painful because pain is true. It's part of reality. Not just physical pain in the body, also mental pain. If you think about politics, so let's say there is elections and you want to gain people's support. If you tell them the truth about the country, the nation, including the ugly parts, including the dark sides, many people wouldn't like it. They wouldn't vote for you. If you tell them a kind of sanitized version, a kind of mythology about the nation, and people would like it. Yes, this is good. I want to see myself like this. I want to see and then you gain power, but you don't know the truth. That's the big difference. I never saw any evidence for that. If there is, it's not doing a good job. You look at how much suffering there is in the world. If there is some higher power kind of taking care of everything, it's not taking very good care of the people and the animals on this planet. If people have experience, that's very good. I've nothing against that. Again, this should manifest in their behavior. At least in my part of the world, like in the Middle East, you see a lot of people constantly talking about God to justify their own problems and weaknesses and negativities. Like they hate some group and they say God hates them. They are very greedy to get some territory, and they said God gave us this territory, or God wants us to have this territory. And this way that people constantly use God to justify their own negativities and their own weaknesses, if you don't need to talk so much about God, you need to, if you really have a connection with God, this should be manifested not in your words, but in your action. If you spread love and compassion and goodwill in the world, then this is true divinity. And then you don't need to go and tell people about God. You just do it in practice.
Which is
Try to do in the books is to be honest and truthful about the processes, the developments of human history, and how everything changes in human history. Again, going back to the spiritual perspective, what you see in meditation is that everything changes all the time, and people constantly try to resist the change. They become attached to something, and they hold on to it. And this happens not just to individuals, but to entire nations, to entire cultures. That the very idea of an identity is something that doesn't change, something that just stays the same. All the world is changing, all these currents, all these winds of history, and our identity doesn't change. It is eternal. And this is a fantasy. And this is a dangerous fantasy, because it is these attachments which are at the root of so many of the conflicts in the world. Okay.
what have you written about in Sapiens?
Humans control the world because we cooperate better than any other animal. And the basis for all human cooperation is ultimately fiction. These fictional stories that hold together political and religious and economic system.
21 Lessons for the 21st Century.
Oh, that's difficult because it is a scattered book.
What have you written about in that book, Yuval?
All human identities, and the very concept of an identity is two things are the same, they are identical. And this is not the case. That everything changes, and therefore all the identities that we try to impose on reality, they too are fictions.
Gotcha. I've heard 10 different pronunciations of Homo Deus in the last 1 month. What's the correct pronunciation?
Homo Deus.
Homo Deus.
Homo Deus.
What have you written about in Homo Deus, and how is it different from 21 Lessons for the 21st Century?
History began when humans invented gods, and history will end when humans become gods. That we are now acquiring divine abilities of destruction and creation, and we are on the verge of creating new beings that will have abilities traditionally considered to be divine abilities. So we are in the process of creating gods.
Gotcha. And finally, we're talking about Nexus. The world has been waiting for your next book. Couple of questions. Why is there a pigeon on the cover?
There are many reasons for the pigeon. First, we wanted something organic on the cover because we are now at the moment of clash between the old organic world. Human beings are animals. We are organic, like pigeons, like elephants, like cows. And AIs are inorganic. Organic beings, we function by cycles. Day and night, winter and summer, birth and death, activity and rest. AIs, they don't work by these organic cycles. They don't care if it's day or night. They are not really born or die, and they never need to rest. They constantly go on. They are always on. And now the struggle in the world is that the AIs are trying to force us to live like non-organic beings. And if you try to force an organic being, like a human being, to be like a computer without any rest, for instance, eventually we collapse and die. So we wanted something organic, and the pigeon is a symbol of information and communication, not just because of carrier pigeons. Also, in the Bible, there is this very famous myth that a flood came and destroyed the whole world, and only Noah remained in Noah's ark with just a few people and the animals. And to know whether the flood is over, they release a pigeon. In English, it's often written in the English Bibles, it's written dove, but this is a mistake. In the original Hebrew, it's a pigeon. And the pigeon flies and comes back with an olive branch. And this is how Noah knows that the flood is over. And so this is kind of the information that the pigeon carried, that the flood is over. And now in the world, we are experiencing a new flood, a flood of information, which is threatening to drown all of us. And this is kind of my pigeon that I'm releasing to the world to see whether the flood is over.
Incredible. Yuval Noah Harari, I've waited years for this conversation. So thank you for your time. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.